So first things first, this cinematic proves a number of things, right? It confirms a number of things that we've been talking about for quite a long time. Now, remember, I'm not doing anything like I called it, I told you so, because that would be unfair. I speculate about things from A to Z, right? I run through every possible scenario usually in my videos. So the chances of me not calling something after 9 months is slim to none. But then if I called something, there's a chance that there's about 9 or 10 other videos that's completely wrong because I called something different in those videos. So that's sort of just to put that out there right away, right? I'm not saying I called this or I said this, but one of our very first speculation theories was, and this is not just me, that the orb inside the Arbiter belonged to Zuvul. It's what made Zuvul who he is. I'm gonna do the analysis now. I'm gonna dive into what I think this story is about, and I'm gonna dive into what I think is the most important parts of this story. I'm bound to miss things. I'm bound to make mistakes. This is just raw analysis of what I've seen so far. So let's go. First things first, look at that orb. The orb that was inside the Arbiter all this time. Now, there's something strange that's going on here. We know that Zuvul have been collecting all of these sigils, right? He's been collecting the sigils from every single one of the Eternal Ones. And chances are this is what was required in order to open the way. So he cannot open the way to the sepulcher of the First Ones without all of the keys to do so. The biggest question that needs to be answered, is this orb his orb, or is it just another sigil? So in other words, it's just another sigil that he is using in order to open the way. It has nothing to do with him. The fact that this orb makes him whole, that is interesting. Up until now, there's been no changes to him, no matter how many sigils he's collected. So my first thought may have been, and that was when I first watched the cinematic, my first thought was the sigils was all part of him once. So all of these sigils were actually part of him. And once all of the sigils were restored to him, he finally got his final form back, right? What he looked like before he was conquered and the sigils were sort of divided amongst many Eternal Ones rather than just the one. However, that would have meant that every sigil he got would have changed him in one way or another, right? Maybe one would have removed the chains, another one would have given him armor on his hands, another one would have given him armor on his legs. Instead, none of the sigils did anything to him, right? It didn't change him in any way, shape, or form, except for this one. When he got this one, he changed completely. He got into his final form. Notice the symbol on the sigil, infinity, right? The never-ending cycle. So if this was once his sigil, if that's correct and this was his sigil, then our speculation that he was the first, that he was the ruler, the leader of the Shadowlands is correct. That's why his sigil is the sigil of eternity, is the sigil of rebirth, the sigil of infinity, because he is the beginning, he is the end. In many ways, he is Ouroboros, right? He is from the start, the Alpha, the Omega. So he was made first. This is why he's described as a Titan plus, right? That's why he's described that way, because he was first. He will be last. Very interesting to think about, at least.
Is once again mine.
The final key is once again mine. This suggests that he's had these keys before. That's something the Eternal Ones did not tell us. The Eternal Ones told us that he wanted all of the keys, and then he resorted to violence in order to get the keys. But they never told us that he actually at one point had all of the keys. So him saying the final key is once again mine, I'm going to contradict myself here and suggest, what if he's only talking about the final key as in this key, his sigil, the thing that was taken from him is once again his, right? Because it remakes him. Something very interesting about his remaking though, notice the armor. Very odd-unwieldy Drust, that chest plate right there. I mean, it looks almost wooden in a way. Some parts of his armor doesn't look Drust, however. But there is a Drust feeling to this. So could we argue? Remember, we've known that the Drust were once druids who started to serve death. And this is why they were basically banished to the in-between. They were banished to neither ever be alive or ever truly be dead. They were sort of banished to the in-between. So could it be that the Drust was his original followers? The Drust were the original people that followed Zuvul. I would argue that makes a lot of sense. Considering this armor, the Drust models themselves after this. All of their armors look exactly like this, or at least is modeled to look similar. As I said, it's not fully Drust though, because you can look at the rest of this and see that it's also more death-like than any of the other Eternal ones, which I think is, again, something that I'm just going to point out here. I do not believe that the Eternal ones were the first. I do not believe that the Eternal ones belongs inside the realms of death. In fact, perhaps far more now. I don't think that this is the realms of death, to be honest. Because looking at Zuvul's armor, he's the only being that looks like he belongs in the Death Realms. All of the others, the Archon, the Winter Queen, not much death themes in that. Just from a theme perspective. I'm not saying that it is true. I'm just talking about from a themes perspective, they don't look like death. The Primus is the only one that somewhat resembles a death being, but now that he has his beard, that's also gone out the window, right? So look at the portal though. Notice the portal. Does this remind anyone of something? Because my first thought was light. When I saw this portal, my first thought was the light. It's got a Titan-esque thing to it, but there's a light feeling to it. It's as if this leads to the realms of light. Now remember the Titans, and remember what the Titans said. At the beginning, there was an ocean of light. And then the ocean of light exploded outwards that created all the planets, and everything that we see in our universe today started within the ocean of light. So what if the sepulcher of the first ones is at the center of the realms of light? I'm not saying that's true. We don't know anything about the first ones, but it is very interesting. It does resemble a clock, actually. Alan, very good catch. It does give you a sort of, it's not 100% a clock, obviously, but you do get a feeling that there's something with time here. It's something with light here. It's the combination or the culmination of order, as in Titan-esque, light, and time that would once again go into order. But if you think about the creation of the universe, those things would have been required in order to create a universe. So there's a weird mixture going on here. The fact also, and this of course is fueled by the fact that we know Zuvul somehow has a hard-on for characters of the light. Don't know why, but he does seem to have a hard-on for characters of the light. The Clockmaker, the problem with the Clockmaker is, even though Zuvul would be a Titan++, could he really challenge the Clockmaker? You know, if Blizzard is even ready to reveal the creator of our universe to us, would he be capable of challenging such a being of such power, right? We're almost definitely going to a Titan homeworld next. Almost definitely. That portal is almost guaranteed going to lead to a Titan homeworld, which we may either go to in this expansion, or Blizzard may decide that is an expansion all on its own, which I personally would love. Of course, the question becomes, what would be the rest of this expansion if Zuvul is not the one that we chase? But there's many things that can put here. The one thing I do not want from Blizzard is to end Zuvul in this expansion. I do not think that Zuvul should end in this expansion. The universe needs a new big bad. We need a new Sargeras. Something that can sort of push the story even if he's not directly involved in it. So, like Sargeras, a lot of the things that we've dealt with over the past expansions have been because of Sargeras, but he was never literally involved in those things, right? We didn't fight him directly. So I do think that's something that is required now, at least from where I sit, and at least what I think the story requires is a new big bad, and he could be the perfect new big bad, which would make us eventually turn to Sargeras for answers, because Sargeras may have been one of the only ones that led this fight against him. We never know. Remember, the only recollections we have of Sargeras and what Sargeras have been doing is what he told the Titans eons ago, when he was told about the Void Lords and that all worlds should be destroyed because the Void Lords are trying to corrupt a Titan. We haven't heard his justification since. Sargeras may have figured out what's been going on. He may have figured out that the jailer has been doing this big brain play, and he just never told anyone because no one would work with him. So he's been amassing his own army, an army that the jailer would not be able to get his hands on. So this might be the perfect chance for Blizzard to redeem Sargeras and bring him back into the fold, sort of like the craziest anti-hero you could ever fucking think of, right? But anyways, let's continue. That's just all the thoughts that's going through my head right now. Just look how quickly this happens. Now that he is back at full strength, does it make sense now why he is called a Titan++? In order to control Anduin, he required a Mournblade. The Mournblade would be the thing that he would use in order to control Anduin, in order to make Anduin serve. With these, it's literally Neil. Chains, blue eyes, completely dominated instantly. There's no fight, there's no arguing. It's literally just bam, Neil, done. The eyes are blue. They're completely dominated instantly. That is probably why he is called a Titan++, because that is how quickly he controls everyone. He can dominate the whole universe, but this is where it gets really, really interesting.
The way is open, Zovol! We already have what we need!
Her voice is different. I don't know why, but her accent seems different in this one, and her voice seems different in this one. I'm not entirely sure why, but there's definitely a difference in her voice. What's even more important to me, and what I think is even more important in this, is Sylvanas. She doesn't have time for what he's trying to do now, which again is rather interesting. If Sylvanas wanted to, Sylvanas have not killed anyone yet this entire expansion of the major NPCs. Not talking about the elves. Yes, people are going to get really pissed when I say she hasn't killed anyone yet, but the way is open, Zovol. We have what we need. Why are you trying to kill them? Just leave them. We know what we want to do. Just go. Let's just do it, right? You don't have to kill them. They will understand eventually, most likely. That's the argument that I'm making here. She's trying to say, leave them. If we do what we do, if we finish what we do, it'll be over. It'll be done, right? And they will understand why we've done it.
Way is open, Zovol! We already have what we need!
Too long I endured the Maker's flawed design.
Now, too long I endured the Maker's flawed design. The question is, what is he referring to? Is he referring to the cycle of life and death? If we are to go by what the brokers call it, the brokers believe, unlike the Titans, remember the Titans see the universe as light versus void, right? The way the Chronicles describe the universe, it's a light v void sort of battle for the heart of the living. However, when you look at the brokers and you read their books, right, or their pages, and we sort of got a bit of spoilers about the brokers' new Grimoire of the Shadowlands and beyond. If you read their book, they actually posit that no, the universe is actually life and death. And the way the universe was set up is that every living being will go to death and then be reborn to live again. So it's an endless cycle that just always continues and never ends, right? So that's what he's referring to here. Too long I endured the Maker's flawed design. Now, I believe what he's referring to is the infinity nature of it. So the idea that death is not the final, life is not the final. It is sort of a balancing act between the two at all times. Whereas he believes that death is the ultimate. So there should not be life, there should be only death, which is quite an interesting reveal. Something we've posited before, but not something that's been confirmed yet to us. So it's nice to see it confirmed.
I will forge a new reality.
In this moment, Sylvanas looks towards Anduin. I will forge a new reality. This is the moment she realizes that she's being played. She's been played this whole time. It's clear that what she wanted and what Zuvul said he wanted is not the same thing. And Giant Rat Guy, you are correct here. Her last encounter with Anduin, when Anduin was still Anduin told her, how do you know the jailer is not just using you as a weapon, right? And she, at that point, did not even give it a second thought. She did not think that he would have. Now, for anyone that is immediately thinking to themselves, screw that, this just proves that she's stupid and she didn't know what she's doing, and Blizzard, this is bad writing from Blizzard. At the end of this, she is reunited with her full self. The Sylvanas we've all seen up until now is a Sylvanas filled with rage and hatred and nothing else. There's nothing else inside that Sylvanas. If you make decisions based on your rage and your hatred, how many good decisions are you going to make? Just as a human being. You don't even have to think about gaming in terms of gaming. If the only decisions you make is fueled by those two emotions, are you going to make any good decisions throughout this entire process? No, Zuvul knew that, so he manipulated that. He aimed her anger in a way that he knew she would follow along. She would follow with that anger, and that's all he needed to do. He simply needed to channel her anger. I love the fact that they bring Arthas' voice back. The Lich King, Arthas, serve. The one word that Sylvanas has never been okay with. Just to be clear, with anyone that doesn't quite understand what I'm saying here, the entirety of the undead society, of the Forsaken society, was built on liberty. It's one of the earliest things we know about the Forsaken. The Forsaken has always had complete freedom to do whatever they want. They have decided to throw their lot in with Sylvanas. That's what they've always been about. That is what the Forsaken society has been about. Liberty, freedom, the ability to make your own decisions. Because of the fact that they've served before. And since they freed their minds from it, they basically pledged that it would never happen again, right? They will never serve again. Now, Sylvanas sort of lost track of that, right? By the end of it, and again, I want to go back to something that we spoke about yesterday. Yesterday, we were watching literally every single cinematic from the start of Sylvanas' story. So basically, since Wrath of the Lich King, we watched every cinematic with Sylvanas in it. And one of the things I sort of noted in those cinematics, Sylvanas had a mind change, right? She had a mind change somewhere between Legion and BFA. Something major happened. Something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense on the face of it. There's moments where Sylvanas says, at Vol'jin's funeral, who among you will help me avenge him? There's that moment in Before the Storm where Sylvanas looks back at the broken shore and she sees the final moments of Varian Wrynn and she feels truly sadness for the fact that she cannot help but think that a great warrior has died this day, right? So at some point, all of this death, all of this destruction, all of this helplessness pushed her over the edge, where she now started to, and this is not me defending her, by the way, this is me explaining what I believe the choices that she made led her to. I'm not defending any of those decisions, I'm simply explaining the process. Sylvanas started looking at an end justify the means. So fuck your liberty right now. This is by the way this is the hallmarks of every great dictatorship, right? Of every great sort of nirvana moment. right? It's what happened in Soviet Russia. Communism was going to be a dictatorship, and then suddenly it's going to be nirvana, and everyone is going to have the best possible time ever. Of course, there was no way to get from the dictatorship to the best possible life on Earth, right? It was just kill everyone until the only people that's left are the people that's sort of capable of not fucking up the system, right? That was sort of the dream. So every dictatorship, the same with Hitler and the Nazis, right? If we kill all of the Jews, then it will be heaven on earth. No one speaks about the atrocity of actually fucking doing that, right? But, you know, we'll go from slaughtering everyone to then suddenly birds chirping, grass is green again, sun is smiling, life is brilliant, right? That's just, we're just gonna make that jump. No one explains how. This is exactly where Sylvanas was. I will slaughter all of you right now, and I will force all of you to submit to me, but I will lead you to the promised land. Again, this was her anger. This was, I don't know why the camera follows my fucking hands, but anyways, this was her anger, and this is exactly what Zuvul was doing. He was playing on that anger. He was playing on the fact that she did not have her entire soul. What's even more interesting to me is the fact that Zuvul had her soul this whole time and did not give it to her, which should, by the way, be a rather big point of contention and something that stands out to a lot of people here. He knew that if he gave her her other part, like the part of her soul that she's been missing, she would most likely not follow him. She would most likely realize that what she's doing now is wrong. So that's why he did not give her the other part of her soul. He decided to do it in this moment where she stopped following him, where she refused to go along with his plans. That's when he goes, now you can have it, and you can not only deal with them, but you can deal with yourself. You can deal with the shame of everything that you've done.
I will never serve.
So there's genuinely something about the jailer that is remarkable to me. She just shot an arrow at him, right? They've been fighting him at every turn, and he does not seem fazed at all. Like, he doesn't get angry. He doesn't yell. He doesn't get upset. He's just sort of like, all right, Betty, just continues. It truly is as if he views mortals so insignificantly that he just does not give a fuck, right? We are so insignificant to him that nothing we do could really upset him. He's just too powerful. He's just too big.
Still chained by mortality.
That definitely affects her right there, right? Still chained by mortality. That definitely, because that's the hope part, right? Mortality, hope. Mortality breeds hope. Humans, mortal beings, are really the only beings that have hope, because without hope, we would crumble and die, right? So the fact that he says that, it definitely affects her. She not necessarily dislikes it. It's just not necessarily what she wanted to hear, right?
You did help restore something stolen from me.
This is...
Allow me to repay you in kind.
Look at how she grabs her chest as she is reunited with her soul. What is the last thing that soul that is now going into Sylvanas, what is the last thing that soul remembers? What is the last thing that happened to that soul? A sword through the chest. She feels that pain because she's finally back. She's finally been put back into her original body. The soul is now finally having to deal with a reunited Sylvanas, a full Sylvanas. We've been going through this yesterday. We were talking about how exactly could Sylvanas be reunited with her soul. Is it going to be against her will? Is it going to be something that she accepts? And we were sort of thinking that it's going to be the heroes, the NPCs of Azeroth that's going to be doing it. I could never have guessed that it would be Zuvul who did it. That he would simply take the other part of her soul and just throw it at her. Is undead just possible by split souls then? Lofi, no. It seems like Frostmourne can either take an entire soul or it can split a soul. It really doesn't matter. What Zuvul required, remember, the decisions that was made there was partly fueled by Zuvul with Frostmourne and partly fueled by Arthas himself. Arthas was so angry at Sylvanas that he made her into the perfect weapon. A weapon that would not question, a weapon that would be filled with hatred and rage. That's how you design a Banshee, right? You get a Banshee by leaving only hatred and rage. By taking all of the empathy, sympathy, the good things, you remove that from the soul. You don't need those, right? The last thing you need is a Banshee that sort of feels too shy to kill, right? Or looks at the people that they have to slaughter and then feels a bit of empathy boiling up, right? You don't need that. What you do need, however, is something that is filled with hatred and rage. And that's exactly what Arthas left her with. Hatred and rage. The jailer knew this and kept this for himself because that's what he needed. He needed someone so blinded by their rage that they could not think about what they were doing. All they wanted was for all of it to be over. They wanted the endless cost, the endless suffering of their existence to be over.
To their mercy.
It's interesting that he releases them, right? He literally just moments ago said, all will serve, and then he made them serve. But he is a little bit angry with Sylvanas. Just slightly angry with Sylvanas. Just enough that he goes, right, I will leave you to their mercy. You turned against me. You decided not to follow me. So now you'll deal with them. Let's see if they have any forgiveness for you.
Be the first to witness reality's end.
We now also know how the compass was dropped. Is the compass actually from... Is this Anduin dropping the compass to give us a message of something that may or may not have happened? Is this Anduin trying to talk to us, or is this Anduin sort of finally letting go of his final moments? Don't know yet, right? But it is very, very... It's interesting to think about, at least.
Cannot let him reach.
Her eyes is very interesting. She is still undead, but the red eyes, the eyes that signified what we would consider to be undead eyes, although most undead have yellow eyes, not red, right? Her blue eyes is reminiscent of what she looked like in life. She had blue eyes in life. Those blue eyes being restored as soon as the other part of her soul came back to her. Very interesting. Is she back to the land of the living? Probably not. I don't know if you having your soul restored to you would bring you back to life, right? Also, I think Blizzard they would have made a bigger deal of that. The old Ranger General is back. That's what this is. This is the old Ranger General. This is the one that offered up her life to save her people. This is the old Sylvanas. Not the one that we've been seeing so far. Not the one that was filled with hatred and filled with fucking rage and just wanted to kill everything in their path because they wanted to reset the entire universe. This is Sylvanas, complete with hope, with life, with empathy, with sympathy, with anger, with rage, with laughter, with sadness. This is the full Sylvanas once again. The question, of course, is how will she deal with all of her decisions up until now? You cannot let him reach this is extremely throwback to her fight against Arthas, right? This was one of the things she was trying to stop Arthas from doing. She didn't want Arthas to reach the Sunwell. So it's sort of a throwback, but at the same time, this is her final moment. This is her final moment of... And I'm not saying she's dead. She's obviously not dead. But this is the moment in which you can see the old Sylvanas coming back, right? You cannot let him reach the sepulchre. Now, to my mind, what is the sepulchre? And we'll end this analysis on that note. What exactly is the sepulchre? I believe that the sepulchre is the reorigination of the universe. This is why it's actually called the sepulchre. We've been asking ourselves, what lies in the sepulchre? It must be a grave, therefore. But yes, the sepulchre is a grave. It's the grave of the universe. Should the universe require remaking, should the universe require reorigination, it would happen within the sepulchre. Right? That's where it would happen. This is what Zuval is after. He literally told Anduin this. Come, be the first to witness reality's end. That is what Zuval is after. To be clear, the cosmological forces shows us what reality actually is. It's Azeroth. Azeroth is labeled in the cosmological forces as reality. So the end is the reorigination. The reality that he now wishes to build, the new world that he wishes to build, is one where free will does not exist. The question, of course, and the final question for this analysis section of the stream, what comes next? Do we get, do we go to Zuval immediately? Do we find Zuval immediately in 9.2? And do we stop him? Or do Blizzard play the long game with him? Do Blizzard decide, no. We don't want Zuval to be part of the end of this expansion. So we're instead going to throw you to a different story. And that's going to become the story that sort of leads to the next expansion that may either take place on a Titan homeworld or may take place back on Azeroth, trying to deal with the aftermath of Zuval right now. It really depends on where the next step of this is. All in all, though, this was incredibly interesting to me. And if the fact that there are people that don't like this cinematic, it just blows my mind. I was skeptical at first, but I am a believer now. I love this cinematic. I think it's a really, really good cinematic.
Shall soon.
Sir.